Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and you're never going to believe this. I know, I was shocked too. It's actually a pretty small week. It's not too bad. It's we might be able to get through these in just a much shorter time than usual, which has been a real challenge the past few weeks. It's been kind of crazy, but I did want to. I'm not going to review these. I just wanted to point them out that they came out this week, and one came out last week. I kind of missed it. Some new trades and hardcovers came out this week. First up, we have Batman the World hardcover, which has 34 creators from 14 different countries doing Batman stories. And they're all in English, but they do them kind of in their, like native, like if it's in Russia, it might be Batman in Russian, like Japan might be Batman Japan. So it's really interesting, but we'll do a much more in-depth review of that one in a video coming soon. Also want to point out, Carl Stark's Old Head came out. That came out last week. I kind of missed it. I did pick it up. I just kind of forgot about it, but it's really good, and we'll go into that review. And then the final one is Batman Black and White hardcover. Now this is the 2020 miniseries, and I believe this is the fourth volume that has come out. I believe that there were 3 previous, and this is the 4th incarnation of Batman Black and White. And like I said, we'll go through those at a later time. But I want to point those out so you can look for those at your local comic shop. They did come in this week. In the case of Old Head, came out last week, so you might want to check. If you're interested, they hopefully should have gotten them more. Hopefully they'll be orderable. But like I said, we'll go into review. We'll do a separate review video on that one pretty soon. So let's get to this week's new comic books that are actually comic books. First up, we have Primordial #1, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Andre Sorrentino. Now, it seems like Jeff's been writing a lot of books, and he has, and for me, that's not a bad thing, because I really, really love Jeff Lemire's writing. And, I also love, the creators that he picks to work with. And, of course, Andre Sorrentino, came to me when I started reading Gideon Falls, which was absolutely amazing. If you haven't read Gideon Falls, I highly recommend that they did a really bang up job there. And, that's finished. So they also did a Joker Black Label story at DC, and now they're doing this new book, Primordial, and it's science fiction, but it's really interesting. It's the basic premise is, what if when we sent the monkeys into space, NASA sent monkeys first, and Russia sent a dog up in Sputnik. What if they decided that they weren't going to do a space race? So instead of the race to get into space and go to the moon, et cetera, that never happens. So, but what we find out is that there's kind of not so much a conspiracy. So the government's like, just shut NASA down, take it apart, save anything that, might be used as a weapon. And there's a scientist that is given this information that things are, that everybody thinks that the monkey and the dog are dead, but they're not. And so that's kind of the premise of this, of, what has really happened to them. And it's really intriguing. I think it's interesting because I think most people do know, the space race and all that stuff, and to kind of take that and kind of split a timeline and kind of create an alternate version of that timeline is really quite fascinating. And Lemire does a really good job of setting things up here with this first issue. He sets the main character up of the scientist and everything, and there's a really great, I will not good, but the last panel is absolutely amazing. It'll just blow your mind. You're like, holy crap, this is amazing. And then Sorrentino's artwork, I mean, he is just, what I love about and his artwork is how he, Jeff Lemire has written this story, obviously with him doing the artwork in mind. And if you've read Gideon Falls, you know that he's able to take it to that next level that it needs to with the layouts and all that kind of stuff. And it's just absolutely gorgeous, and the way that he does everything in this comic is just absolutely amazing. I really highly recommend this book. It's really my big pick of the week. I really enjoyed it. So obviously last week he had May's book, so he's batting 1,000 right now. So definitely check out Primordial. Next up, we have Harley Quinn, the animated series #1, written by T. Franklin with artwork by Max Sarin. Now, this takes place after the end of the second season of the Harley Quinn animated series. So if you haven't seen that, you could be a little lost, because obviously there's things that happen towards the end of the season that lead directly into this kind of a story. I'm guessing this is kind of a bridge story between the second and third season. That's my guess. But I don't know, because we haven't seen the third season. But so basically, Harley and Ivy are, I don't know if they're married, but they're hanging out together because they've discovered they're in love, and we've always kind of known this for a while, that they make a great couple. Obviously, Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner explored a lot of that in the last Harley Quinn series, and they're the animated series kind of builds on this. Franklin actually does a really nice job on continuing the story, and kind of fleshing things out. And of course, there's things, obviously you can do things animated you can't do live action because cost wise, but I think in comics you can kind of even take that even a step further. And, T really, once again, I think the key to this book and why this first issue works so well is the relationship of, between Harley and Ivy. And it's just, it's well done. It's really heartfelt. It's really nice. And she really captures both, Harley and Ivy. And of course, Commissioner Gordon, there's a good chase at the beginning of the thing. But for me, what really made this book is Sarin's artwork. I have not seen his work before, but man, I fell in love. He really is good. And he captures the animated thing, but honestly, it looks even better. Because it's just his style is just perfect for not only this book, but he has a great cartoony style that is just absolutely gorgeous. This is a really good looking book, and if you're a fan of the show or even Harley Quinn, I think it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was really kind of a surprise. I had high hopes for it, and it actually hit that pretty well. Next up, we have Maw #1, written by Jude Ellison S. Doyle with artwork by A.L. Kaplan. Now, I do want to forewarn people about this. It does discuss, it deals with a very touchy subject of rape, and and it could be a possible trigger for some people. So just bear that in mind going into the book. Now, there's nothing graphic in it, which is good, but they do deal with the subject of these two women. They're going to this kind of retreat, but it's an all-female retreat. There's no men. And, they're dealing with, one of them is dealing with the fact that she was raped. So it's kind of interesting. There's a lot, Doyle, it's really interesting. There's a lot in this first issue, but you're kind of left, with a lot of mystery, which is not necessarily bad, but there's definitely a lot of exposition. But the one thing that he does do really well here is set up the characters and really kind of flesh them out and everything. So you really get to know the two main female leads, which is really smart because, when you're kind of going into the an emotional dive story like this, I think it's very important that you're able to relate to the characters and stuff. And in that respect, it's a very smart move. Now, with that being said, this first issue is kind of exposition, and there is stuff going on, but it's not, it's not like, oh my God, kind of thing. It's definitely building, and it's going to be one of those really, if I can guess from this first issue, it's going to be a bit of a slow burn, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I think It's set up really well. And Kaplan's artwork is actually really, really nice. He does a really nice job because, most of it is just people standing around talking, and, it looks really nice. And he's also able to capture the emotions, especially like those little subtle facial expressions that are really important in a story like this. So I think it's worth checking out, but just, once again, be forewarned about, that he deals with rape, and also go in knowing that, this is going to be a slow burn. So you're not going to really, you're going to get a lot out of this first issue, but kind of not in some respects. But I think it's worth checking out. Next up, we have I Am Batman #1, written by John Ridley with artwork by Oliver Copiel. Now, I have not, this whole Jace Fox Batman, with Future State and Infinite Frontiers and all that. Honestly, I really, John Ridley, he wrote the other history of the DC universe, which was stunning. It was absolutely amazing. But I really just, I felt that this Jace Fox Batman really kind of fell flat. I mean, he just seemed like, I don't know, he seemed like a kid with kind of a chip on his shoulder, and I don't know, but I will say, not that this overwhelmed me, but I will say this is the best that I've seen out of this whole thing so far. It was actually pretty enjoyable. I mean, it wasn't mind-numbingly brilliant, but it was certainly better than I think the previous stories, in my opinion. So I think. I mean, if you're a fan of this whole thing that's been going great, if you've been like me and kind of been, about the whole thing, if it's something that interests you, I would say check it out. On the really plus side is Coppel's artwork, which he's done a lot of covers lately, but he hasn't really done a lot of interiors. So this was really a nice bonus for the book, because it really, his art is really, really nice. And I think, having the fact that the story was actually pretty decent for me, and then having that artwork on top of that really, really helped. Once again, not overwhelmed. It's not a huge recommendation, but it's better than it has been. So, there we go on that one. Next up, we have Nobody's Child #1. Written by Massimo Rossi with artwork by Ramiro Borello. Now, what this story is about, it's really interesting. It's about that somebody discovers that white rhinos have like the cure for everything. They can cure AIDS. They can cure cancer. So guess what? They become an endangered species, and it appears that this one guy is actually he's actually guarding the last white rhino in the world. And, so you kind of have, I mean, I think we all know the basic story of, poachers who, go to Africa and stuff like that, to kill animals for ivory and stuff like that. And so he's defending this, and it's really interesting because, I mean, obviously a story like this could be actually quite preachy. And I mean, it obviously does touch on, that element of, the story, but I don't think it really comes off that way. And Rossi, actually, I really give him props for that, because it's actually kind of a story about, a boy and his rhino kind of thing in some ways. And that, I think, is the right approach to take to this, while you still have the other, kind of social commentary elements that go with it. And then Borello's artwork is actually really quite nice. I mean, there's a few times I think, he did digital where there's that kind of zoom in and kind of, it feels like the artwork's blown up, but that was just a very minor gripe. Overall, I think it looks really good. And especially like the rhino, once again, because animals are very hard to get that expression out of them. It's really an interesting book, and I was quite surprised by it. I really was fairly impressed by it, and I'm interested in seeing where they take the second issue. So that's I think it's something you should check out if you're looking for something kind of different. Next up, we have Batman 89 #2, written by Sam Hamm, with artwork by Joe Quinones. Now this, like I said about the first issue, this takes place after the first Tim Burton Batman. So it's a bridge I don't know if it's a bridge between the first and second one, but we do. Catwoman is in this, so he just kind of understands that it's Selina, which is a little weird because obviously, uh, as far as the movie goes, I assume that maybe we're talking this might take place after Batman Returns. Unknown, but possible because obviously Bruce does recognize Selina. So, but really, this is kind of they're creating an origin for Two-Face, which originally was going to be Billy D. Williams, but that never came to fruition. The other thing that's kind of interesting because I remember that there was a rumor, and I don't know if it was, I think it was for the first one or possibly the second one, that Damon Wayans was actually considered to be Robin. So there is a setup for a colored Robin possibly in this. There is that. So it's really interesting. Sam Hamm, I think, is kind of playing fast and loose with continuity in that respect because even though like the first issue definitely appeared to be, like post, Batman, but seemed to be before Batman Returns, it might seem that he's actually that Batman Returns might be part of this comic book continuity. We don't know yet. I'm not sure, but either way, I'm actually enjoying it. And I think he's doing some really interesting things with Harvey Dent, especially the fact that it would have been Billy D. Williams. So I think that's a really interesting part of the story, and I really like it. And I really like Joe Quinones' artwork. He does a really really good job, and he does really do a great job of capturing the actors, and especially with Michael Keaton. We finally figured out that it's actually when he's Batman, it's his lips, because he has very, stylistic lips. And, I'm a big fan of, the original Batman film. I actually prefer Batman Returns myself. I think it's more pure Burton. But, like this and Superman, I think Superman 78 was a little bit better, but, it's Superman, and they're also, I think to me that's the greatest superhero movie ever made. So, but anyways, back to Batman. I'm enjoying it. I'm having a really good time with it, and I think it's still well worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of those films, the Burton films. Next up, we have Campisi, The Dragon Incident #2, written by James Patrick with artwork by Marco Licotti. Now, this is the basic way to describe this story is it's Goodfellas meets Dragon Slayer. So what it is this in the past, dragons and humans lived together. Then the humans decided to break the accord and kill all the dragons, but apparently they didn't kill them all. So now this dragon has come to like a borough in New York that's run basically by the mob, and is wanting revenge on an ancestor who was the one who killed almost all the dragons. So that was the setup in this first issue. So what it is the kind of the grunt. He's like the fixer. He's not like a muscle guy, but he kind of will go in and fix stuff. Like smartly. Not he doesn't hit first. He'll try to solve the problem before he has to have go beyond that. So he does the same thing with the dragon. It's actually really neat because he actually, he goes to the dragon and says, okay, how can we solve this problem? And it's really interesting. I mean, the first issue was good, and I think the second issue does a nice job of building on that story from the first issue. And once again, I think Patrick's, kind of come up with a unique little story here of kind of mishmashing genres and stuff. And then Lacotte's artwork is actually really nice. It does the job really well. And, I wouldn't say it's super flashy, but it gets the job done. And, once again, it's kind of a fun little book, and it's something a little different. So, check it out. Next up, we have Superman and the Authority, #3, written by Grant Morrison with artwork by Mikel Janin and Travel Foreman. Now, this definitely, if you haven't been reading this, you're gonna be a little lost here trying to jump in the third issue. But so this third issue, so he is basically getting the team back together, and so he's getting the final member to come in, and so that's what we're kind of dealing with in this issue. And then now we're also because Superman is losing, it's not so much he's dying, but he's losing his power. So, maybe it's like that as he gets older, he loses his powers. So he's getting the Authority together to basically help him, you know, uh, you know, fix what's going on. There's we don't quite know exactly what this kind of mystery is. It's alluded a little bit more that there is maybe like a, uh, um, Brotherhood of Evil type, alternate Authority team, kind of the Legion of Doom, but like the Authority of Doom kind of thing. That kind of shows up in this issue. And also there's kind of a nod to like the Supermobile, which they made a toy out of. It's Superman. He lost his powers and they made a car for him. It was really weird. But that it's actually kind of a nice touch for nostalgic value. I like this. I'm actually having a lot of fun, and supposedly this is Morrison's last work for DC for a while. But I really enjoy the artwork of Mikhail Janin, and then Travel Foreman. Like last issue, when they broke off the team and they had separate, they had different artists doing this one. So Travel Foreman finishes his story off with the one girl in this issue, so that's why we have two artists. But the artwork's really fabulous. I'm really enjoying the story, and it's really a lot of fun. And Morrison hasn't written Superman in a while, so I think this is a lot of fun. I'm really having a good time with it. Next up, we have Fight Girls number 3, written and drawn by Frank Cho. Okay, it's really simple. We have really pretty, freaking gorgeous Frank Cho artwork. It's a female version of the Hunger Games. Whoever wins rules the universe or planets or whatever. And so this one, there's 3 contestants left, and they have to swim. And then they have to deal with stuff in the water, mostly a giant shark. So this is the Jaws issue. Once again, you're not reading this for its, shall we say, brilliant story. It is what it is. It's good girl artwork and Frank Cho drawing giant sharks, and it's the Hunger Games. So that's what it is. Once again, the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. The story is kind of but it is what it is. And I will applaud Cho that he's not trying to reinvent the wheel. He's just telling a simple story here, and in that level, it works. It's not high art by any stretch, but it's a really pretty looking book. Next up, we have Fantastic Four Life Story number 4, The 90s, written by Mark Russell, with artwork by Sean Isaacs. Now, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. In the last issue, it came out a month ago, so if you didn't read it, I'm telling you now, just stop listening, that Johnny Storm was killed. So now we only have 3 of the Fantastic Four, but Franklin is now grown up. So in the 90s, he's actually a young adult. And so we're dealing with the repercussions of that. And also kind of the Fantastic Four just kind of somewhat having normal lives. It's really quite fascinating what Russell's doing with the story here. But we're also, there's the whole kind of subplot of Reed Richards knowing that Galactus is coming. So this issue, we kind of get closer to that because the Silver Surfer shows up. So Galactus is definitely coming. He was not crying wolf. It's definitely going to happen. But what I find really interesting, what Russell is doing here, is he's kind of just telling, like, in a way, their life story. I mean, it's cliche, but that's really what he's doing here. And it's just really interesting because it's not about, I mean, yeah, there's the whole Galactus thing, but it's not about, fighting with, monsters and Doctor Doom and all this kind of stuff. It's just kind of them trying to somewhat lead normal lives, and yet they are superheroes. Now, the one thing he really, we finally get to have Ben and Alicia story kind of come to fruition in this issue. And of course, there's a lot of Ben in this issue, and I think we all love Ben Grimm, and it's really nice to see how Russell handles that, and he does a really wonderful job. And then you have Isaac's artwork, which is just really top notch here. He really just, especially like because of the emotional core of this story, he just firing on all cylinders and really bringing this whole thing to life. It's a good looking book, and it's wonderful, and I'm just loving it. I can't wait to see where he takes this whole story. This is another one that's really highly recommended. I really love this book. Next up, we have Batman Scooby-Doo #6, written by Shelley Fish, with artwork by Scott Gerald. Now, this issue, so each issue is standalone issues. So this one is that they actually met Batman back in the day when he was, younger, and and so what they've done with the story is there's the one animated series where Scooby-Doo is kids. And so they're drawn that way. So it's kind of like Batman says, "Oh, well, I worked with you before, but you didn't know it," and so that's how the story goes. And so it's actually it's a fun little story. These are great all ages books. Look, they're kind of, they're definitely aimed at a younger audience, but I love them, especially if you're a fan of Batman or you're a fan of Scooby-Doo. These are just a blast. Shelley Fish has been writing these for quite a, different iterations of, he did the Batman team up, and he gets it. He knows these characters. I wasn't a fan of like the Scooby-Doo kids thing, but he actually made it work here where it didn't feel stupid. And Gerald's actually does a really nice job, especially capturing that style of that Scooby-Doo series when they were kids. I'll really give him props. And also, there's kind of a nod and wink to the original Bob Kane Batman. When the bat flies in, and he doesn't do it like Bob Kane, but you can definitely he changes the style, and it's actually really nice. I love this book. I think it's great. If you got kids, give it to your kids, then you read it. Everybody can read this. It's just a blast. I love it. Next up, we have Wonder Woman 779, written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan, with artwork by Travis Moore. There's the backup story of young Diana that's written by Jordi Belair, with artwork by Paulina Ganshu. Now, this is the final chapter of the Diana trying to get back to Earth. So she's basically, last issue, Dead Man appeared to be dead. Ironically, Dead Man dead. Who knew? So what it is they're stuck in the kind of in-between world where you go in, but you can't come out. It's like, the nothingness, and so fortunately for her, Siegfried also came in. So they're basically trying to capture, and put things back together, because the villain basically is trying to destroy the threads of time in some respects. So this final part of this story arc really is the final chapter of this entire story arc that's been going on. I believe this is the 10th part, and it's been a really strong story. It's been a long story, and like I've said before, I really, I have to give it to Conrad and Cloonan, because it's pretty rare in today's comics that you do a storyline that's like roughly 10 issues within a series. And honestly, they've pulled the whole thing off. It's been very satisfying. This issue is a very natural, good conclusion, and it'll be interesting to see how, because obviously it seems that Diana's going to come back to Earth in the next issue. So we'll see what the ramifications of this story. I mean, one would hope that is what they have been leaning up to, is, will Diana be different when she gets back? And that'll be really interesting. And of course, the bigger question is Siegfried going to eventually come back? We love Siegfried. I think we need more Siegfried. I'm just saying, I would like to see more Siegfried. Not that he could replace Steve Trevor, but Siegfried could be a really interesting mix going forward. So we'll see if that happens. The young Diana story, this is the final chapter in this, and once again, I have really enjoyed it. I just don't think it fits with the main story, kind of having an all ages story with kind of a deeper, darker, main story. But they are going to be publishing that by itself. So if you haven't been picking this up, you can get that. And I would assume that hopefully when this story arc, now that the story arc's finished, that hopefully there'll be a trade of this entire story, so that will catch people up if they haven't been reading, which sadly I think a lot of people have not. But I really look, I love Wonder Woman as a character, and I think Conrad and Cloonan are doing a good job, and I'm really excited to see where they take Diana from here. And finally, this week we have Rorschach #12, written by Tom King and George Fornes. Obviously I'm not going to, I can't spoil anything, but I have to say the ending blew me away, but not because it's shocking. It kind of weirdly just ends. And the whole thing, the irony is that the story was pretty much wrapped up like in the last couple of issues. The real story of the murder plot, President Redford and all that kind of stuff was really wrapped up. What this issue does is kind of puts a cherry on top of the private investigator and what his real motives are, and that's all I will say. But once again, Tom King really delivers, and I think this is really interesting that he went into the Watchmen universe, but yet created his own thing. I mean, it's called Rorschach, but Rorschach basically doesn't even really show up in it. It's very different, and it's really fascinating. I really want to go back now that this final chapter's out and really read it in one shot, and to really get that impact, knowing what when you can go back and read things like this. And especially a lot of King's work is very much like that. It actually really does well on a second reading, and that's pretty rare nowadays. And then you have George Fornes, who just really just, his artwork is absolutely gorgeous. He has really brought this King story to life, and I don't know that many artists that could have, and he's just really wonderful. And this book has been absolutely stunning, and if you missed it, there is a hardcover coming. I can't recommend this enough. And if you were gun shy because you thought it was like trampling all over Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' Watchmen, it does not. It is very much its own thing. It's really, in a way, just it's really, to me, like what the HBO miniseries did with Watchmen. It's in that universe, but it's very different, and it creates its own story. That's going to do it this week. We actually got through, yay, a short one, because last week was really, really long. So once again, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California. And just a side note, if you happen to watch this before the weekend, this coming Saturday, they are having Tony Fleece, the writer of Stray Dogs. He's going to be in the store doing a signing from 12 to 4. So if you happen to be in the area, definitely check that out. Tony's a great guy. I've known him for years, and Stray Dogs was a huge hit. I loved every minute of that book. And Ryan, Annie, and Eduardo, they're a great team. They run a great store, very customer oriented. They have a great pull service. They offer trades and hardcovers at 30% off. It's really a great store. And there's also a sister store, Pulp Fiction Culver City, run by Chris and her team. They're separate stores, same name. Once again, they have a pull service, offer trades and graphic novels at 30% off. They're both great stores in the LA area, and definitely support your local comic shops. It's really important. Once again, please be safe out there. Wear your mask. Please get vaccinated. It's very important. We hopefully making a little bit of headway, although I know some of the states are really rough right now. But just be safe. Keep you and your family and your friends safe. That's really the most important. And finally, as we end every episode, please be kind. Kindness doesn't cost anything. Kindness to other people really goes a long way. You can make a difference by just being kind to somebody. That's going to do it this week. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, pass on all this stuff. We're trying to get more people to watch the YouTube channel. So if you like what you see, definitely let me know. If you don't like it, let me know and see if I need to change something. But anyways, take care of yourselves and be kind, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.